call this meeting to order. Secretary, acknowledge roll.
I'll do that. Do you want me to do a verbal roll call or just take notes?
Just take notes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. May I make a comment real quick so I don't get cut off? I just want to point out to the board members, I distributed 2 items this evening. To the board members, I distributed 2 items this evening and put them at your place. Neither one is for this evening's transaction of business, but the first is the Blast Intermediate Unit 17 General Operations Budget, which will be presented in February for your consideration of approval. Since we're together this evening, I wanted to distribute that to you so you had time to look at that. If you have any questions, there are, I think there's a contact information in here, or our IU representative, Mr. Ruffing, would also, I'm sure, be happy to answer any questions about that, or ask questions at the IU meeting and bring them back. Sure. Great, thank you. The second item is the annual State Ethics Commission Statement of Financial Interest filing. This is an annual requirement, which is due back to me as the board secretary by May 1st. I would just suggest that you not wait until May 1st because you may forget about that. I always try to help out board members. Most of you have another paper inside of there, which would be the prior year filing, sort of a cheat sheet, if you will, to help you along in completing that form. But again, that is an annual filing which is required by law. And again, neither of these will be for this evening's transaction of business. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. President, can I have the floor for 1 minute?
Yeah.
My wife's working here. At the end of last meeting, I asked about MC1. The meeting was over. What I do is retract that, and on the agenda tonight is I see Mike got the presentation, and reading the school policy, it allows for a community group to be formed, advisory committee. I think if we're going to do anything, we need to proceed, and I think it's policy 905. We need to look at that, and if we're going to appoint a committee, that's, I think, where we need to head to do that. So I just make that comment before their presentation.
As you know, we tabled the vote on that, the motion on that at the last meeting. So we need to take that off the table, and there was already a motion and a second to approve MC1. So in order to do that, we have to remove that from the table, the motion to table, and we have to remove that from the table and then vote on the original motion.
If that's what you want to do. I mean, you don't have to do that anyway.
I thought the meeting was closed when I made that motion. That's what I was told.
That's kind of difficult because there's a lot going on at the end of the meeting. Actually, there had been a motion to adjourn, so technically that motion wasn't even in order to begin with, but it doesn't really matter how you want to deal with it. I mean, the effect is the same. If you want to make a motion to do something with regard to that, just make a motion.
Mr. President, could I make a motion to accept an community advisory group, and under the questioning, let these folks speak, and then in the end we can maybe vote on it, make them as part of the questioning from the board, or where they're headed, you know, their thoughts, ideas.
Could you let them speak first before you make the motion? I want to remind everyone that the board has an expectation of reasonable decorum from the audience. There will be no cheering and no booing and no interruptions during Anyone not following these rules will be asked to leave. If they refuse to do so, they will be asked by security to leave. If they refuse security, we'll call 911 and have law enforcement remove them. At this time, we'll take public comment, and public comment will be limited to a half hour. It'll be 5 minutes for prior requests, which we have one by Michael Kraft, and 3 minutes for any other speakers. Mr. Kraft.
Mr. Kraft wasn't able to be here tonight. My name is Jonathan Klotz. He asked myself and Dan Allen to stand in for him. He apologizes. He's out of town on business. He wasn't able to attend. I do have a piece of information I'd like to distribute to the board, if I might, Mr. President.
Thank you.
First, I'd just like to clarify one thing. At the last meeting, Mr. Kraft indicated that MC1 was proposing to be a Citizens Advisory Committee. That's not the case. We're proposing that the board consider chartering a Citizens Advisory Committee. So we're not asking for MC1 to be that committee, but we are asking that the board consider forming such a committee. If I might just provide a brief overview of the Citizens Advisory Committee concept. And you'll see some of these points echoed in the State College Area School District packet that I just distributed to you. We've researched a number of school districts in similar situations to ours, construction projects either in the design phase or in the construction phase. And I think you'll agree that there are some good examples available. The charter for the Citizens Advisory Committee for Building and Grounds were built largely from the State College Area School District packet that I just distributed to you. However, since Montoursville Area School District is in a different situation, different project phase than State College was in, there would be some obvious changes needed to that charter. Of course, the committee could work not only on the current high school project, but also future projects, Loyalsock Valley or any of the other district buildings and facilities. We're proposing that the board commission a Citizens Advisory Committee for Buildings and Grounds to provide subject matter experts at the board's disposal so that this project and any project that the district takes on can be run well. And so that options considered can have the correct set of questions on the table. We propose a Citizens Advisory Committee composed of no more than 5 persons with the following key qualifications: documented experience in municipal, commercial, or residential construction, construction management, or capital project management. Members should provide statements of qualification before being appointed. Members should have no current or pending business relationship with the Montoursville Area School District, no conflict of interest or intentions towards commercial gain. Once on the Citizens Advisory Committee as a subject matter expert, members must publicly be apolitical, nonpartisan, and realize that their mission is to provide objective subject matter expert support to the board. Members must agree that subject matter expert support is consensus-based. This is key. Members must be willing to work with other committee members, members of the board, and the public to seek consensus. Given the current project status, the State College Citizens Advisory Committee elements that we would draw most from would be the project management pieces, and I did provide that in the packet there. And I think you'll see that there are a very extensive series of review points for a construction project in that packet. So just to be clear, the advisory committee is not for developing requirements, but for ensuring that any project that we do meets the requirements of the district going forward, and that we get the maximum value for any investment of taxpayer dollars that we make. Given the short time frame of this project, we feel it's important to move forward very quickly. Understand that it's important to build consensus within the community at this time as well. So if the board does move forward with this action, we will be prepared to make recommendations for persons to serve on that committee as well. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kim. I'd like to make a motion to move forward working with.
It might be a good idea to wait to get through public comment before we do motions. When you're free to just seems that might.
Well, while it's fresh on our mind, I thought we did.
Whatever you want to do.
So I'm going to make a motion that we proceed to work with a community-based group, and we appoint, as they say, 5 people or whatever the board decides to move forward to assist in us coming together in this project. And I believe that's what this committee needs to help us do, come together. So I make that motion that we work with the community, develop some kind of a community advisory board through the board policy to move forward.
I second that motion.
All right, now we'll have questions and comments. There's been a motion made to move forward with the community advisory committee. And it's been seconded. Any questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Snell, would you please do this in a roll call vote?
Sure.
I'm sorry, John.
Yes.
This is a committee, is he going, he's way down there. The committee will be strictly structured according to the Montoursville Area School Board, is that correct?
Correct. To the policy.
It will have absolutely nothing to do with State College's plan, even though we may draw from some of their experiences. State College obviously is a different demographic, different tax base, and so I want to make sure that we're not comparing ourselves to somebody that we're not.
Correct. As John said, I believe we use parts of this, not all of it. And
What criteria are we going to use? He mentioned the word apolitical. And boy, that's going to be kind of hard to do, given the serious divisions that are occurring in the community. What assurances do we have that we can achieve that goal?
I can't assure you anything, but people that get on that committee would do that. And, it's going to be, they're going to give us names and we're going to have to approve them. So, we need to get off this 6-3 thing and try to move forward. Because the project's sitting out there, we need to move forward. I think we need help.
It would be a majority vote to accept whoever we would interview, whatever the appropriate word would be. How do we pick them? Is it a majority vote?
I think it's going to have to be a majority vote.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mr. President,
Go ahead.
In the State College Community CAC, Citizens Advisory Committee, they have a makeup that includes 2 board members on the committee, I believe, the Facilities Committee, according to their website. Is that's something that needs to be considered. Also, according to our bylaws, President appoints the members and decides whether or not they have the qualifications that are needed. And also, it's the responsibility, according to the bylaws of the board, to make sure that it's a balanced committee, that there is no one political group or other group that dominates the advisory committee. And also, I believe that the president of the board appoints who is going to be the chairman.
Just to interrupt you, Mr. Kaplan, the president doesn't appoint, it's done by the board vote. Majority appoints.
Okay. And the other thing I believe is that it also states, and the public needs to know this, that a citizens advisory committee can only advise. They need to, they cannot say to the board, you will do something. It's just an advice sort of thing. And the board then can take that into consideration when they do a vote. The other thing is that I think there's some other ground rules that need to be stated since this committee was proposed, to my knowledge, by one organization. And I know, I've not been told as a board member anything about that organization, who they support, what they're made up of, who their officers are. We know nothing about that. And at last meeting, Mike Krantz agreed at the end of the meeting, when I was talking to him here, that he would provide the board with an explanation of the Montoursville Community 1 and tell us, give us a written description of who they represent. And I think that's a very important thing for the public to have that, and we have not received, at least I have not received that. The other thing that he agreed to, the other thing that he agreed to was to make a proposal so that we could look at before we vote on it. And I don't think that hasn't been forthcoming. So I'm questioning why the secrecy and what's going on. And I, for one, cannot vote on something that is secret, that we don't know anything how it's going to work, or who they are, or who they represent.
Kidding me. This guy's
Just so the audience is clear on how the policy reads, I'm going to read the policy so all the citizens out here know what exactly the policy is. It's policy number 905, Citizens Advisory Committees. And the purpose is citizens advisory committees can be useful in keeping the board and administration informed with regard to community opinion and in representing the community in the study of specific school issues. In creating an advisory committee, the board shall define the committee assignment and shall appoint residents who are interested and can make some special contribution to the committee's function. Also seek the widest range of community interest and backgrounds, and they will also appoint the chairperson. Recommendations of advisory committees shall not reduce the responsibility of the board, which shall be free to accept or reject the recommendations. Meetings of an advisory committee are not regular meetings of the board and shall be open to the public only upon invitation of the committee. It's my belief that this board cannot recognize one group over another or over citizens that speak. This board encourages residents that has concerns or ideas to speak before the board during the public comment period. It's the board's role to appoint committees as stated in section 905 of the school board policy. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Snow. Mr. Conkle. Your motion does not in any way refer to or imply that MC1, that's the proper term, is going to be involved in any way in this?
Correct.
That
To me-
really, they were the catalyst to bring it to our attention.
Correct.
Would that be a fair statement?
And this, I believe, should be under the building grounds chairman. As they stated, we should involve them in building projects. And that's
But it's
the
not your
focus of this
intention
term.
that this motion would somehow automatically include, by default, any member of the MC organization?
No, it's, they're going to give 5 recommendations, or how many recommendations they want to give us 10 people, and we'll approve them. I think we're the ones that have to agree on who's going to serve on that committee. I'm not telling you John's on it is a given. No, that's not my intention at all.
Mr. Snow, satisfied with that answer? Yeah. It's legitimate.
Mr. I think before the board can get to appointing people, you have to decide how many people are going to be on the committee. You have to decide what the committee's going to do. You have to, and I think there's a number of things that have to be done by the board before you could appoint committee members. So the way I understand your motion, and maybe I'm wrong, but the way I understand your motion is that you're suggesting that the board start the process of appointing a citizens advisory committee.
Correct.
And that would involve then someone developing criteria, developing things like who's going to be on the board, developing what it's going to do.
Correct.
Okay.
I would volunteer to work with Mr. Lowe if he would take me as a partner, and we'll come up with something, because again, we're stalling here. We need to move this forward, and I think we need people out in the audience to help us. And no matter what side they're on, we need to come to a compromise.
Any more questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Snell. I appreciate Mr. Conkle considering me for it, since he was the previous grounds man, and that's my title now. So, yeah, I would look forward to working with Mr. Conkle.
So we are voting on forming a citizen advisory committee after and in the process have Mr. Conkle and Mr. Lowe come up with a plan and applicants to vote on to accept. Am I correct?
Correct.
All those in favor?
Roll call vote, please, Mr. Snell.
Sorry. Roll call vote, please.
What's the statement of the actual motion? I've lost what's in and what's not.
Sure. It is to proceed with the formation of a citizens advisory committee. And correct me if I'm wrong, with Mr. Logue and Mr. Cargill to prepare what?
The way I would understand it is to prepare criteria for the committee and to define its purpose.
So let me clarify. Again, to proceed with the formation of a Citizens Advisory Committee with Mr. Logue and Mr. Conkle to prepare the criteria for the committee.
Could I add one thing? Could you put in there to form an advisory committee as reference to 905 Montoursville policy?
I'm good with that.
Jen, are you fine with that?
I'll second.
No, you already seconded. Are you fine with?
I'm fine, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, repeat it for everybody.
Okay, one more time. The motion on the floor is to proceed with the formation of a Citizens Advisory Committee as defined by School Board Policy 905, with Mr. Logue and Mr. Conkle to form the criteria for the committee, or to prepare the criteria for committee formation. Mr. Hegemeyer?
No.
Mrs. Johns?
Yes.
Mr. Kaplan?
Yes.
Mr. Conkle?
Yes.
Mr. Logue?
Yes.
Mrs. Marriott?
Yes.
Mr. McCleary?
Yes.
Mr. Ruffing?
Yes.
Mr. Snell?
Yes. Motion carried. Now we'll take any other public comments. State your name and address, please.
The only thing they can get right when I speak is my address, and they don't have the good sense about it. Say, appear not to be here. It's 1102 Chestnut Street. This board is out of order. Mr. Conlon, you are out of order to make a motion during the public comments time. Mr. President, you are out of order to accept that motion. There may have been other people here wanting to speak about that subject, and you've taken that away. I personally think that the committee is a good idea. I think it's too late for this project. It should have been done a year ago. Now you don't have the luxury of the time. I mean, the very people who have been pushing this have been complaining that the delay is going to kill us. So it's up to you, but I think this committee is fine for future projects, but you will probably have to proceed with something on this one before they can meet and make their recommendations. As far as recommendations of members for that board for MC1, I've seen their material. I saw their ad in the Sun Gazette. I saw the paper they handed out at the last meeting. I've seen their Facebook page. They are not impartial on this. They have an agenda. I would suggest you look very carefully at anything that they recommend in the way of members for this committee. The committee was a good idea a year ago. It's probably a good idea now, but it may be useless in this situation. So if I request the board proceed with what they're doing, get the recommendations of the architects that are working on this, and figure out the best way to proceed here to get the best value for this district. By value, I mean the best education at the lowest cost. And I'm trusting you to do that. And I think people in the community should give you a chance. Because I know that you're not trying to shortchange these kids. And I know that you're not trying to shortchange the taxpayers. And pushing those two things together is a tall order. And as I said in the last meeting, I'm glad I'm not in your chairs. But hopefully, we can come to a decision that kind of, at this point, has to meet in the middle, because we've already got a voting rights out there. And so I thank you for your service, and good luck.
Just to clarify, the vote was not to have MC1 be the Citizens Advisory Committee. The vote was to form a Citizens Advisory Committee. MC1 will not have the control over the Citizens Advisory Committee. It will be the board. Any more comments?
My name is Caroline LaCrone, and I live on 212 North Montoursville. If we could go back to our very first meeting after you people got sworn in, there was a committee that was arranged, a teacher committee that automatically put Mrs. Jill Kaplan in charge of. So how can we go from deciding that there's going to be an educational type curriculum, whatever her role is in this education oversight committee, how did you decide that she was going to be the head of that when we just decided that we can't have a CAC committee and not one person is in charge of it?
First of all, I'd like to know where you got the idea that academic evaluation team is an oversight committee. It's not an
whether or not,
oversight committee.
whatever it is. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is.
No, not whatever it is. It's not an oversight committee. It's a committee to study where we can possibly help teachers and students bring up the grades in the district.
Oh. Well, Mrs. Kaplan is the head of that, and I think 6 of you decided that. And we come back to another committee, and it's going to have board members on it, and no one is assigned the head of the chairperson. That's not what we heard in the first meeting.
No, you heard in the first meeting that Jill Kaplan will be heading up the team.
Isn't that not the same thing?
No, the team hasn't been formed yet.
But she is forming the committee. She is going to be the head of the committee.
That's right.
Now, how did you come to that decision? Who voted on it? Did you just say, eeny, meeny, miny, oh, that one?
No, I believe the vote was 6-3 if you go back and look at the meeting minutes.
And that's what I'm going back to. So you're having this entire, half an hour time deciding about a CAC that does not involve whoever MC1 is, but that Mr. Kaplan, Mr. Conkle and Mr. Logue are going to work together. But you just appointed Mrs. Kaplan to this teacher advisory committee.
First of all, I did not say that nobody from MC1 would be on that committee. I said that they are not going to run the Citizens Advisory Committee. The board does that.
Then why
the
is
same
Mrs.
thing?
Okay, I'm not
thing.
in with MC1. However,
Doesn't matter.
why did
The
Mrs.
same-
Kaplan come out of the air and decide to be this chair for this committee? Or chair, or representative, or founder, or recruiter?
Because she was appointed by the board, and number one, she gives, when she gets done and her team gets done looking at the things to possibly help, she will make recommendations to the board, and the board will decide at that point whether or not they want to go with those recommendations.
Okay, how was Mrs. Kaplan, how did you choose Mrs. Kaplan? Just because you like her, or because her husband's on the board? I mean, where did we come up with Mrs. Kaplan?
I'll answer this last question, and then your time's up.
I didn't hear the buzzer.
Maybe that's because you was talking.
Probably, I do that well.
Mrs. Kaplan was chosen by a 6-3 vote.
Including her husband's vote, just to get that in here.
She's a volunteer, she's not
A
paid.
volunteer? She was just on this board. No one else would ever pick a former board member to head up a committee.
Hi, my name is Joe Shore. I live at 340 North Washington Street, Montoursville. While going back to school for my teaching certifications 14 years ago, I substituted often in this building between the years of 2000 and 2005 as a guest teacher. My viewpoints stem from my experiences as an educator, and since last meeting, I've had plenty of time to jot down lots of notes, so I'll be going through to condense them for my abbreviated time. But in addition to my days here as a substitute teacher, I am familiar with this building as a student, as a parent, and although I currently do not have any children or grandchildren in the district, I'm here as a fellow taxpayer with concerns of what was said and not said at public meetings, and points that also need to be considered regarding what should be valued in the building initiative. Mr. Bassett came to you with a structural analysis of the building. He said some of the bones were in usable shape. What he didn't comment on was the pulse of the building. The life it lives, who it serves, its function now and in the future as a 21st century learning environment, and where it is lacking in those respects. Absent were interviews with students and the teachers within, stepping into the shoes of an educator in our society where safety and security, curriculum innovation, creativity, and common core standards are everyday concerns. Research into what would it take to make the learning environment a place for full technology integration and a space for flexibility for a future beyond prediction. Understanding of the bond issues, financing, windows, and incentive packages, and what grants are available and which ones would be lost. Further, by keeping the building as is and putting much of the needed repairs into the column of routine maintenance, changes the scope of the project. What is cast as routine, those necessary repairs would be stacked unfunded expenses for the taxpayers to absorb immediately, possibly without financial benefit of special financing plans or grants. Will we have to start all over with a whole new timeline with this one already 2 years in development? In his presentation, Mr. Bassett noted that the basement was dry and has the best drainage available. Yet in the same meeting, Mr. Hagemeyer, who retired from this maintenance staff from this district, also noted that the pavement is wet, that the basement, when wet, pallets are put down to protect what is stored. Opposite views, one from a snapshot in time and the other from experience over time. Mr. Bassett also noted that he found all the science classrooms and labs needed to be moved, enlarged, and updated for the disciplines to be relevant and safe. Isn't it curious that each of these classrooms that he recommended that needed moved to a complete new structure are currently in the original part of the high school, the facade of which so many are nostalgically attached, but is no longer functional for its current occupants or purpose? I hear the buzzer. So I will move on to, if I may, have extended time to move on to my conclusion.
I'm sorry.
Okay, well, what I will do then is I will email the balance of my comments to you folks. Thank you for your time.
Nelson, 225 Bennett Street. I just have a quick question, and I think maybe to try to clarify what some of us aren't understanding, and Carolyn maybe was trying to clarify. I think the Community Advisory Committee that you've agreed to form
is a great idea. I think some of the confusion is that the committee that Mrs. Kaplan was, whatever the term you want to use, appointed to or is going to be forming, also seems to be similar to a community action committee, which is fine. I understand that. But the policy, I thought you said that all of the members on the community action committee have to be chosen and approved by, or have to be approved by the board, not one person on the committee appointing everybody. And I think that's where the confusion is for some of the people watching. I don't have a problem with the community action committee, but how is her committee different than the building community action committee? And why is the policy not the same for that? So if you can maybe explain that to us. I'm not going to ask for personal conversation, but just if that could be clarified, how that committee of hers does not fall under that policy 905, or I think if I have the right number, as far as how the members are picked, and also have a guidelines for it as far as what the purpose of that committee is and its boundaries and whatnots. It seems like they are both two different community action committees, which could be very valuable to the community, but would still fall under the same policies and guidelines. Thank you.
I'll answer that. The team that Mrs. Kaplan's putting together, she is asking for volunteers from teachers and other people from education, in the education field. Ultimately, the board will be approving the volunteers that she gets. So basically, it is the same thing because the board has to approve who she picks or who volunteers for her to be on her team. Any other public comments?
Mr. Snell and members of the board, I'm just here only to cheerlead because I'm really so thankful for the sacrifice and the service. Every hour you've spent, every word you've read and studied to be able to do what you're doing is a gift to our community. And I think a lot of us would have felt a couple, maybe days ago, like government in our school system was broken because there was just so many heated issues, making things difficult to move in any positive direction at all. And I really applaud, I guess it was Mike Kraft's, I don't know who came up with this plan that brought such strong parties together with such a common desire. Let's just get the smartest brains, people we want to hear from, yet maintain the government and authority to make the decisions we believe in. I just feel like, wow, government really works in this place, and I'm really excited about it. I haven't heard of the plan before tonight, and seeing everyone come together in such a level-headed and loving way, I'm just thrilled. I feel like my community, Montoursville, is a community I'm so thankful to be a part of, and thankful for all of you and what you're doing here. Your level heads, your love for the kids and the people, and knowing what's important. So thank you. Just had to cheerlead.
Could you state your name and address, please?
I'm Angela Scones on Yegel Road, Montoursville. Thank you.
If there's nobody else, we'll move on.
Mr. Snell,
Yes.
can I make a comment here? At the last meeting, we recognized the fact that our FBLA students did so well in the state competition. I would like to mention our academic decathlon team engaged in the competition in Houtzdale, PA, came in 4th place. We had quite a number of students. Too many to mention their names, but I'd like to have that entire team recognized for the good that they did and for the positive attention that they brought to Montoursville Area School District.
Thank you, Mr.
Snell. Just in keeping with Mr. Ruffin, I wanted to get this in at the last meeting, but we ran out of time. We have a student, and I hope I pronounced the name right, Ben Kearney, I believe. He needs to be recognized. He had 100th career wrestling win up in Toronto. So I think he deserves to be recognized. He may not be here tonight, but if you ever see him in school, please acknowledge his achievement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCleary. We now have a presentation, and it didn't get on the action items for people to see, but we have a presentation by RBC Capital Markets.
Mr. President, my apologies that that was omitted from the agenda. I believe it was on there earlier today, and through revisions, I believe it was deleted somehow, so I do apologize.
Good evening. My name is Ken Phillips. Me is my partner Steve Flaherty. Two of us have been here assisting the board with respect to the financing along with our architect, Mr. Taylor. Tonight, Bob is passing out some information that the administration and the board requested that we take a look at, and that is sort of just a recap and some projections with respect to the next financing piece that the board would need to consider to move ahead with projects. I know that you're continuing to look at, in essence, what those final projects are going to be. You're working with Mr. Taylor and other special counsel with respect to that. But we had a good meeting with the administration and some of the board members with respect to just reviewing information in an information session. So before you, what Mr. Saul has handed out that Steve and I put together is sort of a recap of what's happened to date, okay, which is the financing plan that was implemented. For many of you who are maybe in the audience, now sitting on the board, and maybe people behind us who read the Act 34 meetings, the anticipated high school project and work being done here was a little shy of $36 million. And during the public hearings and the public meetings, the plan was to finance that over a several-year period, as noted on the very first page. The first financing occurred last year, where we decided to do a bank note as opposed to just a traditional bond issue. Several reasons for doing that. One was the rate was very attractive. Second reason was that we achieved better call provisions in case we needed to call the bonds at some point in time on a quicker notice than normally a 5-year traditional call that we do on bond issues that we've done for the last 25 years here at Montoursville. And that has worked out very well. It's given you cash flow to do what you've done so far. And I believe you're at the point where the remaining funds from that are about $1 million. So the administration has reached out here the last 2-3 months and said, oh, okay, we need to start to make some decisions with respect to where the project is going, how we're going to fund that, because we're going to to be out of money here very soon because of what has transpired to date. And so that was the reason for the, meetings that we're having. The very next page, that is an illustration of what occurred at the Act 34 hearing. That was the public hearing for the high school project. And that was information in a booklet as presented that evening and presented to the Department of Community and Economic Development and also presented to the Department of Education. The next page then gets a little bit into, we have 2 studies remaining. The next illustration keeps in line with what occurred at the Act 34 hearing, the anticipation of a total needs of about $36 million. And we have updated that with the completion of the first 2015 issue, the banknote that was put together. And you can see in footnote 2, the particulars of that, the average rate being 3.13%. It was a drawdown loan, and we're still drawing that money down. Again, have about $1 million left. The next phase then was to, at some point in 2016, finance $16 million. That would be used, again, toward the projects. And those funds would then be paired with a final issue, whatever the final size would be with respect to the bids and any change orders and so on. In 2017, another issue of a little shy of $10 million. You can see that the footnotes for number 3 and number 4, again, kept everything for an apples-to-apples comparison to what appeared during the Act 34 hearing. The footnotes use the same rates that we used for the hearing, 4.26, 4.58. And then we mention that represents current rates plus a spread, because rates have stayed low, which is to the benefit of doing any type of financing or any type of project. We have 1.15% and 1.4% contingencies. We don't know what's going to happen to rates in 2017. I would safely say that if something happens here to meet some of the other demands for your project financing-wise in the next 60 to 90 days, more than likely we're going to be far below the 4.26, which again is a favorable thing for you. This page, if you compare it to the previous page, you can see that the overall millage requirements, which the district started to put in place way back in 2014-15, were 1.88. And so far to date, you have put the appropriate millage in place that is appropriate for a project of the tune of $36 million. The last page then, scenario 2, we're just calling it from our discussions here in the last month or so, is again entails a $60 million project, but then we stop there. So the project goes from 36 down to 26 roughly. And you can see that from a millage standpoint, what that does, it greatly reduces 1.88 down to something a little over a mill. So the question is that sufficient with respect to the work being done with your architect and your special counsel to meet the educational requirements that you're looking for with respect to project renovations and some of the new parts of the project? The thought in our discussions, deliberations the last month or so was that it still makes sense to proceed with the 16. We would try to structure that in such a way that to the extent funds would be left over, they could be used for various different purposes, various different projects. They could be used to refund some of the original debt that was incurred last year. So I think we would be able to, with help of legal counsel and bond counsel, be able to structure the resolution in such a manner to give you complete flexibility to the extent funds would be remaining after the initial borrowing. Our task and challenge that we would ask from you is to basically, if the decision is to proceed to get new funds, since you're almost out of the original funds, to let it up to council and ourselves to come back with a plan that we think is one, the least costly plan for you, and also maybe provide you some more flexibility in the opportunity to maybe retire some debt if we need to do that if there's funds left over. So, I've spoken a lot here the last 10 minutes, but there's material before you has been reviewed, it's been vetted a little bit, but Steve and I are here tonight to answer any questions with respect to what your next actions are in order to, once the funds are completed from the first loan. I believe Mr. Saul and Dr. Bowers have indicated that there may be about 30 to 45 days of sufficient cash on hand that the district has that could be reimbursed back to the district until we would have additional funding. But the reason to get before you tonight is it normally takes that 30 to 90 day period to go ahead and obtain additional funds. We've already started to do some of the legwork in anticipation of this evening's meeting. So with that, we'll answer any questions that you have, get some direction from you hopefully. We have discussed some future dates for potential meetings and take legal action. So with that, turn it back over to you, Mr. Snow.
Could you let everybody know from your perspective, if we would vote to take this bond at the next board meeting, how much time would lapse before the bond would be issued?
Sure. The next meeting is the 9th, I believe, right? Is it the 2-9 action we're talking about? We've already had some discussions with bond counsel in terms of, potentially if the board this evening said go ahead and proceed. We've also started some deliberations for our meeting with some other institutions. I would say at the outside date, you would probably have money by the end of March, okay? And possibly sooner than that.
The next board meeting is at the 9th, you said.
Correct.
Is there going to be enough time for council and all the people involved to complete everything that's necessary for the board to actually come to a vote?
Sure. With your direction this evening, what needs to happen is Mr. Landon and Saul Ewing, who's been here for 30-some years at the district, Mr. Fry, would prepare the appropriate bond resolutions. That could be done very easily with respect to the timing of Feb 9. You need 3 days notice in the paper, okay? So subject to our discussions this evening, we would be on the phone to legal tomorrow and start that process. So yes, we do have time to get that done.
And you work together to coordinate how this goes on, to the point where you're not going to take it?
Ken, do you want to talk a little bit about what the parameters resolution is and how that works? What you bring back before the board?
Sure.
Should they give direction this evening?
Sure.
That might help clarify the question.
Sure. What you would probably see, not to be alarmed, okay, is we do things now in what's called parameters fashion. It's the best way to give you and retain flexibility. It's being done this way for the last 7 to 10 years, I guess, in the marketplace. What we do is if you tell us 16 is the number, we're probably going to come back with something higher than that, 18, 19. We're going to come and show an interest rate of like 6%. Okay? All that is we need to start the clock ticking at the state. The state takes, once you file, the whole process is roughly 30 days. So if we take action on Feb 9, really the earliest you're probably going to have approval to really do anything legally in terms of settling on financing will be March 9th. Give or take 30 days. So what we do is we set these parameters. The issue would be 16. Okay, it would pretty much mirror what appears on one of the last 2 pages, because that's really not going to change. Regardless if there's the 2017 issue and the project stays intact or some parts thereof, what you see on either the scenario 1 or scenario 2, the 16 million is probably pretty much going to stay the same. Right now, the rates will be lower, okay, which is a good thing. But we come back on Feb 9, council has all the documents. We're here with respect to the contract, but it will read probably in that 18 million range, and it's probably going to read 6%. Don't get alarmed. That gets replaced once we do the financing. Okay, just like we did on the very first issue, the 2015 issue. What the board did is they adopted a resolution back then, I think it was 11 or 12 million, and the rate was 6%, and we replaced that then with ultimately what happened.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What would be the maximum rate, the rate ceiling?
Well, technically, until it gets replaced, just like on the last issue, the rate ceiling was 6. But once the new issue is done, that's eliminated.
What will it be then?
It'll be whatever the rates are, sort of the market rates at the time that we do the issue. To set a maximum rate on the issue, we don't know that until we actually market the bonds or complete negotiations. The average rate on the first one ended up being 3.13, and that will stay that way. Okay, it's graduated. It's graduated. You know, some lower rates up front, higher rates in the longer end, but the average was at 3.13. So that is fixed on the first issue that no one can ever take from you. Okay, just like on this next issue, we show on the studies we show a rate of 4.26. The market's lower than that now. Well, let's just say it's 4.26, and we would end up doing an issue with 4.26. No one could ever take that from you. The rates would never go higher than that rate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, that's maybe an important point to drive home. When we actually originally did these studies, we really did look at worst case scenario. We looked at rates that we hoped that we'd never see.
Correct.
But we wanted to present numbers that were more worst case scenario than trying to make some promise that we maybe couldn't keep. So even when you see 4.36 in today's bond rates are 3.
We'd be in the mid to high 3s. Yeah, for this structure. When we started this process way back in fall of 2013, at that point the board had us run scenarios anywhere from $30 to $50 million. It soon became quite evident early on, sitting around those tables and discussions, and architects were there, and we're there, and the board was there. There's no way we could afford $50 million. We're not hard pressed to afford $40 million. Okay? And we used rates that we're sort of using here. Now we've been lucky. First one's coming at a really attractive rate, and this next one, okay, regardless of the size we're going to do here, if we do the 16, is going to come in very attractive as well. So the first 2/3 of what you're looking at will be done at rates much lower than we projected with a contingency way back in 2013. Which is
excuse me. The Act 34 hearing paperwork showed a yearly debt service of $2.7 million, and that was figured at 3%. So you're saying that that was at 3%, so now we're probably getting close to $3 million a year in debt service.
If you look at, I'm going to call it the Act 34 numbers, which was the very first spreadsheet after the page 2 or 3. It says at the top, Village Study Act 34.
Yeah.
Okay. You can see that the total debt service, okay, which includes the very first column is your existing debt service. The very first column says total net outstanding, which is your existing debt. When you were done putting in 15, 16, 17, you were about $3.575, $3.6 million. That was the total debt service right here in this column here. Okay. Now, if you flip the page, you're at something lower than that. You're about 3.5, let's call it. Because we know what the first piece is. We know what the first financing was.
Yeah.
So now you're down at the 3.5 range. So I would think if we stayed here, realizing the second column, the second 16 million is going to be less than shown here, that 3.5 would come down.
But it's still considerably more than the 2.7 listed in the Act 34 paperwork.
I guess I'm not following. I'm not following the 2.7, Mr. Lowe, because this is our Act 34 material right here. So I'm not following the 2.7. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit, maybe where that was, and I'll take a look at it?
Yeah, it was the paperwork which was in the office here. The Act 34 hearing was done in January or February. It was. It shows 2.77 million is average yearly debt service.
That's not the Act 34. That was a February.
Now, I think I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, here it is. What we have to do restructuring around your existing debt. Okay, there's no way to come up with an average except to do an arithmetic average of all this.
Okay.
So I see now where that number's coming from. This achieves the state's requirements for how we're supposed to show a wraparound financing.
Okay, but the 2.7, you see where that number is, and that in fact is not the number. The actual yearly average debt service is going to be over $3 million.
Yeah, yes, as illustrated on this original Act 04, it's like 3.5 because we're deferring some principal until your existing debt falls off, which is how most school districts finance a building project of this size and of this length.
Okay, well, I want to know the actual yearly debt service.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, President McCleary, I'm sorry.
No, February 9th, we could vote, okay? We know every day financial market changes.
Sure.
Now, what day do you pick to determine the district?
Okay, very good question. Once February 9 occurs, leading up to that time, we in essence are already starting some discussion, very preliminary, with potential options. Our goal is going to be as follows. Right after the 9th, okay, we're in touch with the administration, in touch with, whoever we need to be in touch with. Our goal, and I think we heard it loud and clear, is we are to come with a financing that is the least expensive, but also provides you the most flexibility. That's our goal. Now, the least expensive is probably going to be going through the bond route. The most flexibility may be doing something bank again. And once you get over 10 million, you start to lose some of that flexibility with the banks. You trust us, 35 years of being in this business, you trust us to come back to you with something, we talk to the administration, right after, between the 9th and probably March 1st, as a, hey, we think we should go this route, we think we should go this route, and this is why.
So, I mean, do we have to tell you when to pull the trigger?
No, you're pretty much trusting us to pull the trigger.
You know when to pull the
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I want.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
And to that point, and to build a little bit off what Ken said about the parameters sort of establishes the window, dollars, the interest rate, and when the trigger actually gets pulled, whenever that is, there's not you are not obligated for that day on making actual payments. The parameters establishes the governmental approvals at DCED, but the parameters requires an addendum to be executed by, and the resolution will identify who's authorized to execute the addendum. And what the addendum basically just says is modifying the parameters to reflect that the actual sale, or when the trigger got pulled, resulted in these dollars and these rates. So while we will guide and help you make that decision, ultimately it will be signed off on by whomever is authorized to sign off on that in the resolution. It could be Mr. Snell. Normally it would be either the board president or sometimes it's the chair of the finance committee, just depending on how the board likes to operate.
See, I didn't know whether you called somebody up and said, hey, we think today is the day.
And that's exactly what we
do. You think we should pull the trigger today, or do you want us to call it back tomorrow?
And that's how the process works. To give you two quick examples, if we had a scenario from a bank perspective that was very attractive, we would reach out to the administration and say, look, we'd like to run through this with you. This is how it comes out. If you guys are okay with it, we want to go ahead and pull the trigger. Let's make arrangements that get the addendum executed. The bond market's a little different in that same thing, we would be monitoring the market, we would come to the administration and say, look, these are where rates are, we don't think they're getting any better, or these are the reasons why we think this is the right time, or conversely, this is why we think we should wait. We'd walk through where we would see it coming out. We would go out and actually sell the bonds to investors, and then come back with that completed addendum that says these are the exact dollars that they, and then that gets signed off on by the consumer, Mr. Snell.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Any other questions? And if not, Mr. Snell, I Mr. Landon, perhaps the appropriate action is just to give us direction to proceed and come back with the 9th if it's the desire of the board is to proceed with 16 million financing.
You're going to either pass or not pass the motion on the 9th. So you don't really need to take formal action tonight. That's up to you if you want to, or if anyone, I think it's probably best just to get a sense of the board, and if the board is generally supportive of it.
Right.
Just authorize them to bring a resolution to the board.
That's the best way, is probably just nod of the heads. We don't want to, you don't want to incur legal expense to put the thing together, put the ad in paper if we're not going to take action. Okay? Thank you very much. We'll proceed. Mr. Landon, I'm sure we'll be in touch with respect to legal counsel in his office. Very good. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
The next action item we have on the agenda is to consider approval of an agreement with Bassett Engineering Corporation.
Yeah, they're in with what I gave Robert Bob. Agreements. Two agreements in the package I gave Robert. They're along the books. They're separate. There's one for the contract for the work on under the suspension of the construction, and the other is for the work on the value engineering project. And Mr. Landon gave us forms, the first 2 pages of the forms that he suggested, and they're loose, they're not in the book. And, the second 2 pages are proposals, which we already given the board. We can't use, I do not have separate rate schedules. We can't use the rate schedules I've given. They've given me a not to exceed price. The value engineering agreement proposal is not to exceed $60,000, and That's split up among myself and my 4 sub-consultants. So what they gave me, which I did not include, is their sub-agreements to us.
So the total amount not to exceed on the value engineering study should be
$60,000, yes.
And the total amount on the winterization?
There's not a total there, but we really didn't have any idea to what that could be. If the board would want to set a not to exceed, we could do that. I don't have a dollar figure. We're just finishing this last month, so I don't know where we're at with that total. I know it's been dropped off considerably in the last few weeks, but I don't have a dollar total for that.
Mr. President?
Considering we were just handed this information about professional services, I would like to table the 2 professional services. I hate to do it because I want to move forward, but here we are handed pieces of papers and we're going to vote on tonight. And it's an important piece of the puzzle here. And I haven't had time to read this. I haven't had time to do the value. I haven't had time to do anything with it because I just got it. So I make a motion that we table at least the professional services agreements. And I believe if we're going to table that, we can't listen to somebody who we don't have a contract with. That's my motion.
Now, I agree with Scott. Just being handed this, I would like to have time to review it. So I second his motion.
Mr. Snell, are we going to have discussion on this?
Yes.
And can that discussion include questions to Mr. Bassett?
Yes, I can.
Mr. Bassett, is it your typical business practice to do a job and then offer a contract agreement?
Sometimes we offer contracts with agreement in advance, and sometimes we don't, depends on the project.
So if you did the job and you're just now presenting us with a contract, that seems bizarre to me. And it also indicates to me that we have no obligation to pay you whatsoever.
Well, I believe the board already made a motion to hire me back on December 7th, so I think the board is under legal obligation, first of all. Second of all, I gave this contract to the district on January 12th. I don't know if the board just received it. We gave it to the district on January 12th. We were authorized to receive it on December 7th, and we proceeded in good faith because this was a project with urgent need due to the fact that the construction project was under suspension, and every minute that is spent, money is being spent while it's being suspended. So we proceeded with all due haste to try and minimize the duration of the suspension before the board makes a decision. We have acted every day with that intent to minimize the cost to the district.
Mr. Ruffing?
Yes.
I would like to remind you that we did vote on allowing Bassett Engineering to do the study not to exceed $60,000.
Could I see the list of other architects that we're considering?
I'd like to make a comment.
Go ahead.
Part of public, or part of professional services is, and this has gone through with the previous board also, is that the board, if they choose, do not, under professional services regulations, do not need to have bids. As a matter of fact, the bid to drill the well at the valley, there was no bid. There was no anything. There was just a approval of the board to hire a company who was going to drill a well not to exceed $45,000. And then, so that's a standard procedure, and it's done many, many times by this board, mainly the previous board, that they hire different kinds of professional services. Now, the other thing is that these proposals, there's something a little different here in that, and this has not been the standard, I don't think, for this board. The proposal with the words Bassett Engineering on it, and this one with Bassett Engineering, have been were presented to the board, and we all saw that, or had the opportunity to see those contracts. Now, because of the solicitor's understanding of liabilities or what have you, he has, and this is a standard, again, a standard procedure done, he has attached 2 sheets to the front of each one of these. Those 2 sheets are designed to meet legal requirements. So those 2 sheets are new to us. Some of us have seen those sorts of things before where we work, in that the solicitor often wants to clarify that all kinds of little things. So both of these contracts were available and were handed out for everyone to see. So therefore, I would advise that we not table this request to approve these contracts, because it's just, I mean, it's all right there, including the hourly rates, who the experts are, the experts in all the different electrical, plumbing, architecture, and structural engineers.
Mr. Ruffing, we did get this agreement, and like Mr. Kaplan said, this is just our solicitor's addition to it to cover us legally.
Are you talking about this that I was just handed in that?
Look on the 3rd and the 4th page. Those pages we have received before.
Okay. Well,
on the 12th of January.
Is Mr. Kaplan, is he done down there? Are you done, Mr. Kaplan? Are you done?
No, I'm not done. What did you want to do? I mean, I don't understand.
I was actually